It's the end of a busy day. You just saw 15 patients. Instead of heading home for dinner with your spouse or playing with the kids, you now begin your night job, charting. Charting is critical and necessary, but it steals your focus from your patients, eats away at your time with your family, and keeps you up at night. The burden of always having another chart to complete drains every clinician. Freed is an AI medical scribe that makes charting go away.
Freed listens, prepares your notes, and writes patient instructions for you. Charting is done before your patient walks out of the room. And wait, because it gets better. Freed learns your style over time, just like a human scribe would, except that it will never quit on you. Freed is loved by 3,000 plus clinicians from every specialty. It is HIPAA compliant, takes 30 seconds to learn, and costs only $99 per month. You can try Freed for free right now by going to freed.ai. That's FREED.ai. Listeners of BS Free MD can use the BS Free 50 coupon code for $50 off the first month.
Finally, a source of raw, real, and honest information on healthcare issues that matter most. Welcome to BS Free MD. From the latest medical information to how to stay sane as a doctor or a patient, no subject is taboo, no BS is allowed. Now, let's welcome your hosts, Doctors May and Tim Hindmarsh.
And we're back with another Truth Bomb episode. This week, we're talking about manipulation. So what does it mean to manipulate someone? If you look it up, manipulation really is the exercise of harmful influence over others. And we all know that people who manipulate others can attack their mental and emotional sides to get what they want and create really an imbalance of power between the person who's doing the manipulating and the victim. So why is this on your brain lately, Tim?
RSV. So
Ooh.
I have been floored, and we've talked about this before, but I've been floored by the power of direct-to-consumer medical advertising, pharma advertising. It is absolutely staggeringly insane. And I'm just amazed that I go to work and see people and, you know, the folks above 65, and it's like, I got my 5th COVID vaccine, I got my shingles vaccine, and I got my RSV vaccine. And I have people coming in and they have a cold and they're like, well, it could be RSV. And I said, well, it doesn't really matter what it is because it's just a cold. Well, it could be RSV. And I sat there and I look at them and I go,
so wait,
you realize nobody in your age demographic knew what RSV was until there was a vaccine and advertising explaining what RSV is.
Exactly. That's what I was just about to interrupt
I mean,
you and say.
It's literally like they made up.
It was.
It's like they made up a disease. So I went back and I looked at, you know, data. Okay. And it's actually amazing because there's even in infants who are really susceptible to RSV bronchiolitis, it's still only like if I recall correctly, I think it's less than 100 a year die from RSV and bronchiolitis. So it's wild. And then when you get into elderly, it's even tinier slivers. Yes, it can be a severe lower respiratory tract viral infection. But it's the same thing that we saw in the last 4 years. The people that are at high risk are the people that are at high risk for everything, from dying of everything, because they have chronic diseases and they're really old. And so, but yet we have a vaccine campaign to vaccinate elderly people for a disease they didn't even care about because they didn't know about it. And then the other one that's unbelievably manipulative, which just drives me crazy, is for the maternal vaccine. They're giving a maternal RSV vaccine, and because they can't give it to babies. And the reason they can't give it to babies is because when they came out with the first RSV vaccine in 1969, it caused antibody-dependent enhancement. In other words, they got a really good antibody response to the RSV vaccine. And then when the kids eventually got native RSV, the vaccinated kids died at a higher rate than the unvaccinated kids, which suggests to me it isn't just the vaccine technology. It's probably the nature of those kind of respiratory viruses themselves, because we have a terrible track record making vaccines for highly mutagenic respiratory viruses, influenza included. Okay. So what do? They give the vaccine to the mother. The mother makes an antibody response, shoots the antibodies through the placenta to the baby, and this is going to protect the baby from getting infantile RSV. And I sit there and I go, yeah, okay, if it works and it's really safe, but you're literally taking a brand new medication and you're giving it to two people at once, and you're actually vaccinating somebody for a disease that they're not going to get. Or if they get it, it doesn't matter.
Well, I'm going to.
So you're vaccinating your infant via the mother, and RSV is bad in infants. It is, but it's not that bad. Like, it's bad. I get it. I'm not going to say it's not a bad disease.
So here,
but this vaccine, it better be like 99% effective the way they're doing it to make it worth doing something like this. Like, it blows my mind.
So we were talking about manipulation, and we can argue about whether or not RSV is bad or not. If you start to look it up now, of course, everything's updated on the web recently to October with more stats. And I think I don't know how accurate. I'm sure this is accurate data, but
you have to look. Don't look at any data after COVID. I don't look at any.
So that's what I was just about to say.
Any data.
It's all updated since COVID.
You got to look at
the reason. So what happens is now they post that RSV is, obviously it's always been an illness in the young, like kids 2 and under, and those over 65 who have comorbid conditions that are unhealthy. And they have 60 to 160,000 hospitalizations from it. 6,000 to 10,000 RSV associated deaths occur in those over age 65. Now, here's the thing.
It says estimated though. They don't have, which means they don't have a freaking clue. Exactly. They're pulling it out of their ass.
So here's the thing. The next thing is that it says, due to the COVID-19 pandemic shutdowns, the winter increase of RSV never happened during the winter of 2021. And now there is a triple-demic happening. So this is all new. So what are they doing? If you look all this up, they're starting to play on people's fear, because you're right. Before COVID, RSV still existed. There were deaths, just like, people slip and fall and break their hips and die. People fall down.
There'll be a vaccine for slips and falls. You wait.
People fall down and bump their head and die, and they're on blood, etc. People. So this was, the situation was, RSV always existed, but now, because we have people being afraid of COVID and dying, they're piggybacking onto that.
No,
and using fear and manipulation emotionally to coerce people into thinking now suddenly RSV is so much worse than before, and we're all at higher risk from dying. And that is the disgusting part. Because I would say nothing's changed. Yes, there's a little rise and bump because people
because we shut down and everyone's immune system because their immune system was manipulated by an agent that didn't exist until November of 2020, and now everyone's going to get every freaking respiratory infection because maybe we have.
So they're using
done something bad.
They're using fear and people's fear of what happened with losing people, loved ones, people they know, everybody lost someone, to push this vaccine.
But the manipulation part, okay, so you said, where did it come from? It came from all of a sudden RSV is a thing.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm sitting there watching, I don't know what, some kind of sporting activity or something last night. And I saw this ad 3 or 4 times, and it's a woman, and it's like, you're going to breathe 60 million times during your pregnancy before your baby's born, and how you're breathing life into this baby. And then they show like this sort of silhouette of the woman's legs and the baby being like given to her, and the baby's first breath, breathing, because breathing's so important, because you don't want your kid to get RSV. It is so unbelievably freaking manipulative. So you don't love your baby, your unborn baby, unless you take this RSV vaccine. Okay. But never mind the fact that a lot of these gigantic companies are also unbelievably major league pro-choice. So if you decide that you just don't want it to breathe, you can kill it whenever the hell you want. that's a side. Okay. So they're not really playing to a higher principle. They're playing to a monetary principle.
Of course.
And this whole concept, the word manipulate comes from hand, Latin for hand. And so I think of, you're sitting there and you're watching TV and you're consuming all of this manipulation. And it's like people have been so co-opted into believing manipulative things that they'd honestly will rather believe something they know is manipulative than not. Which is amazing. Like I counsel patients and I say, well, I don't know anything about this vaccine because it hasn't been around enough. So we can't really say anything about it. And they're convinced it's a real thing because they're convinced more by advertisers than they are by me. And I think of the hands molding like on a wheel, and it's like pottery, and there's these two hands, and it's just like pushing the clay into exactly the shape they want it to be. Pearson Rabbit's story begins with Dr. Stephanie Pearson, a passionate OBGYN at the height of her career. But when a shoulder injury struck during a precipitous delivery, her dreams were shattered, leaving her unable to practice medicine. Determined to make a difference, Stephanie became an advocate for her peers, guiding them through the complex disability process. Alongside insurance expert Scott Raffett, Stephanie founded Pearson Rabbits, a company determined to approach insurance differently. Together, they set their mission to educate and empower physicians to protect their most valuable asset, their income, and the most important people in their life, their family. Today, Pearson Rabbits serves the medical community in all 50 states. At Pearson Rabbits, they understand the unique concerns of physicians. Physician-founded and physician-focused, Pearson Rabbits builds human connections before they create quotes. Life can change in an instant. It's hard to imagine that a sudden illness or injury could leave you and your family in a devastating financial situation. But with a little planning and guidance, you can prepare for every possibility. Visit PearsonRabbits.com today to schedule your consultation with a Pearson Rabbits advisor.
You're exactly right. And sorry, I was trying to interrupt, but you said my thought was we were having this discussion about how people will believe advertisers who have a monetary gain more than they will believe someone like their physician or someone else, even their own intuition. And it blows my mind. But it's the same with any advertising, whether it's fast food because you deserve a break, even if you have not.
You deserve obesity today. It's
or you deserve a Rolex, even though it's not in your budget, or whatever the advertising scenario may be. It's all about manipulation and coercion to sell product.
It's just crazy.
But now it's in healthcare.
When they're so shameless with that Jardiance ad, where they have a woman who's not chunky, she is morbidly obese. Okay. They are normalizing morbid obesity. She is dancing around, singing about how how unbelievably great Jardiance is for her A1C. When the answer is, stop being fat! But you can't say that because then you're fat shaming and somehow you're bad. I get it. Obesity is really a difficult thing to deal with, but don't freaking normalize it. Okay?
So why are people more likely to listen to advertisers and believe it and fall for the manipulation?
It brings me back.
Then what?
To a book written 90 years ago, 1933. C.S. Lewis, The Pilgrim's Regress. The premise of the book is if you've made a mistake, if you're going down a path and you go down the wrong turn, the answer isn't to keep making wrong turns. The answer is to go back and retrace your step and figure out where you screwed up, and then you'll be on the right path. So instead of the
regress to progress.
Regress, right? So he goes through all these different towns, and the scientific town they go through, it's an allegory. It's called Ignorantia. I love it. Okay,
perfect.
And what Ignorantia is about is the change from classical to scientific education strengthens our ignorance. Through the machine age, for good or ill, will do less than is expected of it. Okay, so once you stop teaching Latin and classical literature, and it just becomes technical and scientific and everything scientism, you become kind of progressively retarded. Okay, that's what C.S. Lewis is saying 90 years ago. So the guide takes the pilgrim through ignorantia and explains to him how they think, which is essentially prophetic. This is what we're living in now. The idea depends on a curious disease, which they have all caught, an inability to disbelieve advertisements. To be sure, if the machines did what they promised, the change would be very deep indeed. The next war, for example, would change the state of their country from disease to death. They're afraid of this themselves, though. Most of them are old enough to know by experience that a gun is no more likely than a toothpaste or a cosmetic to do the things its makers says it will do. It is the same with all their machines. Now, here's the part that's mind-blowing. Remember, 90 years ago. Their labor-saving devices multiply drudgery. Their aphrodisiacs make half of them impotent. Their amusements bore them. Their rapid production of food leaves half of them starving, and I would contest half of them morbidly obese. And their devices for saving time have banished leisure from their country. There will be no radical change. And as for the permanence, consider how likely all machines are broken and obliterated. Holy moly. We somehow, it's like your soul is the clay and the advertising machine are the hands. And you get used to that being massaged because it kind of feels good. And so when you have to deal with the stark reality, you may come sliding off of the spinning wheel. But that's a better, more real place to be than just having your soul massage. It's okay if you're morbidly obese. We got a pill to fix your diabetes. Oh, be scared to death that you're a terrible mom before you even birth your child because you need the RSV vaccine for them. And it's like when we don't have those hands on the clay of our souls, we feel disconnected. And it's wild because it's just manipulation. That's all it is. And you watch Fox News, you're being manipulated. You watch CNN, you're being manipulated. You watch football, the advertisements, you're being manipulated. That's what it is. We're so used to it. To try to describe it is like a fish describing water. It's almost impossible.
And I'm going to leave it at that. Bombs away.
As we wrap up, remember, Freed AI is here to free you from your medical documentation. HIPAA compliant, takes 30 seconds to learn, and is incredibly affordable. Join the movement to eliminate clinician burnout. Visit Freed AI and improve your lifestyle.
And you can try Freed for free right now by going to freed.ai. It's FREED.ai. Listeners of BS Free MD can use the BS Free 50 coupon code for $50 off the first month.
It's no secret that medicine is a bit, uptight. That's why Tim and I created BS Free MD, to mix things up a little and have fun in the process. Besides, we are having these exact same discussions all the time, so we thought we might as well invite everyone to the party. If you really like us, you can get plenty more and maybe see one of Tim's cool tattoos on our Instagram or Facebook pages at BS Free MD. See you next time.
Well, we try to keep BS Free MD as raw and real as possible. We can't be held responsible for any medical decisions or discussions had as a result of what you've heard on the show. We know, bummer. But the truth is, we really do care about your questions. So feel free to reach out to us by email at doc@bsfreemd.com.